We are happy to announce that today we will have the opportunity to listen to the lectures of Dr. Agnieszka Szumigalska and Dr. Gor from London University. Dr. Agnieszka Szumigalska is representing the University of Wrocław, although she obtained a PhD also from University of Amsterdam, and she is so-called Europeans. Okay, the floor is yours.
You can have the closer, easier. Loud enough. But okay, if something is wrong, then I will use the microphone. First of all, I know that you have already had several lectures about civil society, and that's why I would like to refer to your knowledge with regard to some theoretical aspects of civil society. And maybe, first of all, I would like you to tell me why civil society is so important for the development of democracy, before we start with some definitions. You have already had several lectures about civil society. So why this notion is so important for the development of democracy? Which aspects of civil society? Okay, what else?
In some way, it's like a resource or source of political elites or something like that.
Okay, this bottom-up level. Yeah. What else?
It provides quite useful feedback for political elites about their policies.
Okay, again, from below. What else? In general, we should just treat it as at this bottom-up level. What else?
There can be it's like bringing to the political and public discourse some topics the political elites don't maybe want to or not able to communicate and don't want to discuss.
Very well, it is just a step to the political society. Very well. What else?
Sometimes it can even provide the legitimacy for some policies.
Okay, what are the elements of civil society? The basic elements. We will discuss them, but first maybe you would like to tell me something about this. The basic elements of civil society theory.
NGOs.
Okay, so different kinds of organizations. What else?
Movements also.
Okay, so less formal, I would say. What else? Okay, identity, self-awareness. What else? Only these three elements? Okay, so just to begin with the theoretical framework, I will present two definitions of civil society, and I would like you to tell me what is the basic difference, so where the stress is put in both definitions, in each of them. The first one says that civil society is the arena of political and self-organization groups, movements, and individuals, relatively autonomous from the state, attempting to articulate values, create associations and solidarities, and advance their interests. And another definition of civil society, well, there are plenty. There are many different definitions, many approaches for the concept of civil society. But the second one says that civil society represents a sphere of dynamic and responsive public discourse between the state, the public sphere consisting of voluntary organizations, and the market sphere containing private firms and unions. And I have already stressed the basic terms in both definitions. So the first one is the arena, and the second one is the discourse. But what's the real difference between these two approaches? In terms of static and dynamic elements. Is there any difference?
The arena is more static, whereas discourse would be dynamic.
Okay. And if we treat it in terms of third sector and the second one is the discourse. What else? Okay, so just to begin with the theoretical framework, I will present two definitions of civil society, and I would like you to tell me what is the basic difference, so where the stress is put in both definitions. In terms of static and dynamic elements. In general, we may say that civil society, of course, this is clear and quite obvious that this is the second sector. But there are some other approaches towards this term, according to which civil society is not only the third sector, but it is also a kind of glue linking different aspects of social activity. And if we treat civil society as network, we may distinguish four very basic fields of activity. And these are state sphere, public sphere, market sphere, and private sphere. And in this term, well, with regard to civil society, we will treat it in terms of a network rather than a very static construction. And I know that in one of the lectures, this aspect of an ongoing process of the formation of civil society has already been stressed. Okay, now something about historical background of civil society in Poland. And here again, I would like to refer to your knowledge, especially to my students, or to Polish students in general. If we look at the civil society as the process of the formation of civil society in Poland in the process of democratization, we may distinguish different actors and different aspects of this process. And among these actors, we may stress the role of intellectuals and workers, especially their cooperation, which is quite important here. The role of the Catholic Church, the role of microstructure, so the less formal links between individuals or the formation of communities in Poland. And these three groups form the basic elements in terms of political or socio-political actors. But we should also stress the role of some other aspects, so not only this form of activity, but also the idea of self-organization, which is the basic term for civil society. Why? Why self-organization? What does it mean? Willingness to create something. Okay, so willingness, what else? Why self-organization?
Because they're not organized by some state institution or top-down approach. Individuals come together and decide to organize.
Exactly. So if we look at the role of the state and society, here the role of society and this bottom-up direction of activity should be stressed. So from below, bottom up. But in this process of democratization, in terms of the creation, the formation of a civil society in Poland, another notion of self-limitation is stressed by many scholars. And there are at least two basic reasons for this direction, for self-limitation. And do you know which? Why this process of the formation of civil society was self-limited? What does it mean and why? Just think about the role of the communist regime at that time. So, were there really the conditions for the formation of civil society in the period of communist regime? No. So this is the first thing. The second one is the geopolitical position, place of Poland in that period, of course, which is connected to this political situation, but also learning from historical experience, like from other revolutions. And the last point which should be stressed here is the negotiated character of regime change in Poland, which is also a very important element in the formation of civil society in contemporary Poland. And one of the most important multilateral institutions in the process of the formation of civil society was, of course, solidarity. Here, different aspects should be, of course, taken into account, but the most important was that in that process and due to the activity of solidarity in Poland, certain socio-political networks and different forms of communication could develop. With regard to this involvement of workers and intellectuals, and I have just stress this collaboration between both groups in the process of democratization and in the process of the formation of civil society. Different dimensions of social activity may be taken into consideration, and these are first the organization of the movement, so again self-organization, the formulation of central demands, negotiations with the authorities, leadership and expert advisory roles. And here again, three basic ideas of the process of transformation in Poland, which are, as I said, the self-organization of society, so I will not discuss it further. Then the rebuilding of social type outside of the authoritarian state, which is somehow connected with the process of the self-organization, two separate spheres. And the appeal to an independent public sphere, so in the roots of civil society. But a very important part here is the development from civil society to political society, especially when we look at the process of this negotiated regime change. So, just to sum up this theoretical approach, we should remember that first of all there are different approaches, different definitions of civil society, different elements that should be taken into account, and that the formation of civil society is an ongoing process. It is not a static construction of the process. And now I would like to present the shape, the state of civil society in Poland, basing on several surveys. One of them is 2011, and then I will refer to some other surveys conducted in Poland. Okay, so first in this survey, in this research from 2 years ago, 4 basic measures of the state of civil society were taken into account. And these were, the first, the degree of participation in associations, second, the involvement in activities for the benefit of one's own community, third, participation in public meetings, and fourth, participation in local government or in general in elections. Local government elections were often treated as the most important factor with regard to the election because they somehow indicate the involvement of social communities, of local communities in local issues. That's why this The first measure, which was taken into account in that research, was participation in associations. And according to this diagnosis, only 15% of respondents belong to any organization, association, party, committee, council, religious group, or class. So this is a very low level of social involvement with regard to the participation in associations. Especially if we consider the fact that only 32% of this group, among these respondents, have any role in an association. So here we should stress the division which distinguishes passive and active forms of the participation in associations. I will stress this aspect again in the later part of my presentation with regard to public meetings. And according to this research, 85.
So roles like members or leaders?
Yes. The participation in the organization.
Do you know any distinctive characteristic of these 15%? Is there are they young? Are they male? Are they what?
This is a very good question because we will also discuss the factors that play a role in the participation. I will answer this question at the end because I will sum up all these factors. But with regard to the 15% or 9% of respondents who belong to any form of organization, 11%, approximately 11% belong to one association only. So even if we say that 15% is not so bad, it is, but if we claim it is not a very low level, only 11% belong to one association only, and only 1% more than two associations. And with regard to gender, income, education, I will come back to this also. Okay, and this factor of participation in associations is one of the most common indicators of the state of the condition of civil society. Why? Why this is so important? Why participation in associations is one of the most common, or the simplest, if we may say so, indicators of civil society?
Because it shows more willingness to be active, because it shows a type of belonging, let's say.
Okay, but how? If we say associations, organizations, clubs, all forms of social organization, of course. Yes, but I want to a bit more detail.
You're more likely to attend meetings, you're more likely to go to different programs, in that sense, to give more of your time to these types of activities. Also to give the money to pay for the membership.
Okay, not necessarily, but it might play a role. But in general, associations are form of structures. So in this way, also we, as citizens, we learn how to build certain structures, how to establish certain organizations, and how to organize ourselves in frames of different structures. This is important because later I will say something about the participation in public meetings, and this is another dimension of civil society, of our activity in this regard. So 85% of respondents of society, we may just generalize that, did not belong to the organization in 2010. And just to sum up the main tendencies and conclude this form of social activity, we should note that there is no systematic increase or decrease in interest in civil organizations within a decade. Because if we compare it to 1989 or the period just after 1989, there is a slight change, and we will discuss it later. And in general, we may claim that civil society in Poland has not been developing and has been failing to attract more people to its networks and structures. So this is with regard to the first measure, participation in association. Okay. The first measure, which was taken into account, certainly was concerned activities for the benefit of one's own community. What kinds of community could be taken into account in that research, in your opinion? Is family such a community? Very well, what else? This is very basic.
More than something.
Okay. So local communities, for instance, what else? We have some examples. Well, especially local communities, so at this very local level. And according to that research, 15% of respondents were involved in any forms of activities in 2011. Whereas 19% conducted unpaid work or services for persons outside the family or for a social organization. This may be a very informal way of, a very informal form of social activity. And why we should not take families into account in this regard. general, such community social organizations are not families. If we say that we are socially active, it does not mean that we are active in terms of our family lives. It should be a bit broader. The third measure in this research is participation in public meetings. And my question now, and I would like to stress the significance of social participation in public meetings. This is a very important factor, though it is maybe not this very common indicator of civil society, not the first one. But why is participation in public meetings so important? You have some suggestions?
Communication skills.
Okay, but what skills?
Communication skills.
Okay, communication, what else?
Coordination.
Organization.
Organization, maybe just have to. I would
You have
not
to
think
organize
that.
a public meeting. You have to organize a public meeting. In that sense.
Okay, so yes, in this regard, yes. What else?
From the second definition of civil society,
Mhm.
where you have discourse and dissent and talking,
Exactly.
exchanging ideas.
Very well. So we learn how to discuss certain problems, certain issues, how to express our own views, how to put our own arguments in the discussion. Anything else here?
Depending on the zone of the communications, could be learning tolerance or not.
Very well. Just to listen to some other views.
Maybe sometimes if you have some like big public meeting, you can put a big pressure to the politicians. Then if you have some NGO which is small and you are working hard for a longer time.
Do you mean that this is the first step of such an organization?
No, I don't mean that it is a first step, but it could have a greater impact on the process of political decision making if you want to push something through. Sometimes
Okay,
yes.
I would agree, though here with regard to public meetings, I would rather place them at a very, very ground level. So public meetings are not only such great meetings, like I think that you think about different forms of manifestation, your views and opinions. But it is also, it should be also placed at the level of neighborhood, local communities, some meetings concerning local or even in a narrower dimension, I would say, issues. So according to this survey from 2011, only 19% of respondents participated in a public meeting last year in any form of public meeting. But there should be one comment here that this percentage does not really indicate the real participation in public meetings, as this only shows that only 19% of society of respondents would recall any form of such public meetings that is worth mentioning here. Okay, and passive and active forms of participation again. Which form is more important? It is a very easy question, I think. Active form. And here again, the level of, well, with regard to the participants in public meetings, this passive form of participation dominates. And what does it mean that we are active with regard to the participation in public meetings? Because I don't know if it is clear, passive and active forms of participation in public meetings. We may also link it to this context of associations, not only with regard to public meetings, but also with regard to different forms of organization. What are passive and active forms?
Active is being involved, talking, participating. Passive is more sitting back and observing.
Exactly. And the last measure, which is taken into account in this research, is the participation in elections. what it is playing. So presidential elections are most popular, most interesting for us as Polish citizens, and local government elections are least important. And now some conclusions. So first of all, we should stress a very low level post-social and civil experiences. And this follows a kind of a vicious circle of passive citizenship. What does it mean? Vicious circle of passive citizenship in our land. What's that? Do you know? What is a vicious circle?
Something that tends to repeat itself, not stop.
Exactly. So the result is the consequence.
So the passive is often to dominate more and more.
Somehow. But this means, it means that we are
breeds passivity. Passivity breeds passivity.
exactly. So we are passive, we don't take part, we don't participate in any form of social activity, so we cannot gain any social skills. We do not gain any social skills, so we do not participate because we do not know how. And for democracy, this is very, very important to use these instruments, to be active and use these rights, because these are our, of course it's a very trivial notion, but these rights should be used and not only in this passive way, in the way that we know we have. Special role of elections, another conclusion. So we are active from elections to elections, and between these socio-political events we are very passive. We are not interested, we as citizens, we are not interested in any forms of social activity. And now I would like to answer this question about such factors as sex, age, education, and income. There are maybe somehow not slight, but first of all, with regard to sex, slight differences. Men are more eager to take part in such forms. And how do you think? Why?
They have more free time.
Okay. What else?
I think it has to do with a certain role model of men being politicians or being active, and not staying at home and not passing.
Okay. What else? There is no clear answer. These are just your opinions.
Patriarchal society.
Okay. What else? Anything else? Okay, with regard to age, how do you think? Are there any differences between different age groups? There are, but what difference?
I think the younger people, like maybe between 18 and 35, are more active than the older.
They are less. Yes. So the older group, they're more active. But this is just if you are older than 35, you are more eager to take part in such forms of activity. So this is another way around. What about education and income? Any links? Any links between these factors and social activity?
Well, of course.
More activity, more educational activity.
Exactly.
If you are critical enough, you must understand that you need to have some sort of skill in it. And it comes with itself.
Yes, so you have this motivation. Very well. So the higher level of our education and the income, the higher level of our social activity. And I have only one question in this part, and then we will go on with the presentation. But with regard to the participation in elections, this level of our participation in elections is quite low. And my question is, what's the reason of this low level of our participation in elections?
Maybe there's too much of them, like too much of the elections, so the voters are tired to go again and again and vote almost every year.
Okay. And others?
majority of the society gets their information from the media. The media tends to present presidential elections the most. So that's when, if you don't have an active civil society,
If we compare different kinds of elections, what else?
Another few quite likely that people are just satisfied with the way it works and what is unnecessary to vote.
Discuss changes. I have a question. You're giving averages. You're taking into account the poll from the 1990s. Period.
We have it from 1989, but there are of course different elections in different years. Yes, so as you can see here. Okay, but yes, with regard to this answer, there is no answer really. And there is even, well, some scholars say that this proper answer, the right answer for this question, why the level of participation in election is so low, is worth a Nobel Prize. So we cannot really explain this this low level of participation. And now, civil society in Poland with regard to structures and organizations. I will present different types of organizations in Poland with regard to civil society in contemporary Poland. Another approach to civil society says that civil society is based on organizations, values, and procedures. And my question is, what kinds of organizations, what values, and what procedures are the basic ones in this approach in Europe? First, organizations. What kinds of organizations are the beneficial ones for civil society? Any type. Non-government. Okay, NGOs. What else?
Charities. Charities.
Okay, so some voluntary movements, I would say, charity. What else? Interests. Okay, so different groups representing interests, certain values and interests. What else? Only these three groups?
Wide varieties. Basically anything from a sport club to a national campaign, like ad hoc.
There's a whole variety of different organizations and groups. The main difference is between formal, less formal links, or the size, the forms of structures of organizations. What about values? What values may be taken into account? This is a very broad term, so you may hear almost everything.
Human rights,
Okay, what else?
democracy,
Or rather, our approach, our attitude towards democracy, I would say. What else? Social trust, tolerance, and with regard to procedures, think about the participation in associations and public meetings. What procedures, what rules, what laws can we learn? Okay. What else? So the rules for active participation in general, how we discuss different things, how we make decisions, how we argue. Exactly. Very well. That's something between values and procedures. Okay. As you said, there are many different kinds of organizations, and some of them have been listed here. And these are NGOs, social movements and collective action, labor unions, labor organizations representing workers, and faith-based organizations and communities and foundations. These are not the all forms of organizations, of course. And here you have some data from 2010, and in that year, according to the there were 80. This according to 50,000 organizations in Poland. And here you see how, which kinds of organizations form the majority, and these numbers are in thousands. This is not the percentage of organizations. This is something from 80,000. So the most common ones were typical social organizations. What forms of organizations may be considered typical? What are these typical social organizations? How do you think? Or maybe in which fields of social activity, in which areas are they active? Typical. It is very broad term. It was used so in this way without using the statistics.
These are this organization representing the different interests of some groups.
Yes, but in what fields, in what areas of our social activity? What kinds of organizations do we have? In what areas of social life may they be active?
Trade unions? Work?
Not really. You have labor organizations as a separate group. Okay, but what else? Which fields? Ecology, science and research, culture, education, very well. What else? Social care, healthcare. Yeah, so all different fields of social activity. Everything you can really find here. The second group concerns organizations. So another group which has 18,000 organizations in 2010. Then there are fire brigades. Another group which is quite popular and quite common in Poland. Hunting clubs, foundations, labor organizations, and faith-based organizations. Only there's not 2,000 of different organizations. Okay, and if you don't mind, we will make a short break now. Okay, 10 minutes.